What's up, y'all? I feel like the screen or the video is a bit dark. I'm still trying to figure out how to work this camera thing. So actually, let's see if I can do this. That does absolutely nothing. um, well, I feel like I can either stop this and try to get it perfect, or we're just going to roll with this and see where this goes. So this is the first live that we're doing here on this channel. I'm excited for you to be here. If you're watching this, thanks for having a bit of curiosity and perhaps trust with your time and attention to explore what it is we'll be talking about today. And that's going to be the idea of space, holding, and care. These days, there's talk of space holding, right? And holding space, whatever that may mean. And we'll have a bit of a chat about that. My personal background with holding space has been mostly through men's circles, as well as workshops, holding a good number of different types of spaces for people, whether it's in workshop spaces, facilitated spaces, professional spaces, community spaces, and there are some ideas around this that I would like to share. So, what is space? Perhaps you can think about that for yourself. What does it mean, this idea of space? For, I think one of the ways we can look at this is space is whatever it is that is around us, right? It is perhaps the distance between me and you, this area that is between you and me. And when we're talking about holding, whatever it is that our awareness, whatever our physicality can contain. So when we're talking about holding space, there's really two components to this. There is the inner space, which is what we're holding, and then there's the outer space. When we're intentional about holding space, our focus may be in whatever it is that's happening inside that space. But we also, if we are being attentive and we're full of care, part of this is being clear about how far and how much space we can hold. Sometimes the most space that we can hold is for ourselves. Sometimes that space expands a little bit and we can hold our connections, our relationships. Taking that further, perhaps we can hold our families, our communities, the areas around us, our city, it just kind of keeps going in those directions all the way to perhaps holding our collective humanity. That can and may seem very broad and a little bit nebulous, and it is. So part of space holding is an internal orientation and I would call it almost a decision, an intentional decision of what space I'm holding, how much space I can hold based off my capacity and what's appropriate, and what is appropriate or requested by those who are perhaps in that space. And there's also an element of how much and how long we're holding that space for. Right? If we think about it, within where we're having a conversation with someone, and let's say that they're processing something, they're sharing stuff. Like personally, I can only hold space for that for so long, right? And depending on how much intensity there is in terms of the topic and all that stuff, kind of impacts how much space I can hold within that container, within that period of time. The tricky part about this is that when we are not intentional about the space that we are holding, what ends up happening is we tend to hold more than we can, which then can result in us feeling perhaps a little bit off balance, either during that experience or afterwards. And it can also impact the experience of those who are experiencing the holding. Another aspect of this is that was kind of hinted on is the idea of consent. If you've ever received a hug from someone where they held for a bit too long, how did that feel? Probably felt some within the range of not so good, right? And that's something that if we are intentional about when we're holding and how we're holding space, it's important to consider. I always think about there's the holding as one action, and how part of holding, you can even tell my hands are like a little bit stressed, right, or a little bit tense, is that there almost has to be a release of that holding. The challenge for many of us is that we are either told or we're have an orientation or we're pointed to holding without releasing. And this is one of the things that I see being tricky, right? Especially in our modern age, is that we hold so much. And yet, if we are not able to be also spacious in our release, that it can be unsustainable. And within the space itself, it can also be harmful for those who are perhaps in that space. Right? Again, if we're contracted within that space in our holding, it contracts those who are within it. And while that may work for a period of time, it gets to the point to where things start to get uncomfortable, and then people start to have to get out. And that's where containers perhaps get burst. Right? Communities are impacted, and there's a little bit too much intensity in that release, as opposed to if those who are holding space intentionally know that we are holding and then we're releasing. I'm sensing that here for myself, actually, as this is my first live, and I'm feeling the intensity of holding this space in this conversation. I'm also noticing that I'm overcoming a bit of a cold, so my energetic ability to really, be here with you is impacted by that. Right? The space I'm able to hold for this conversation is only so much, and so there's care within this, right? Where I notice the care for myself in this moment and also afterwards, and also the care for you, because I'm sure I could just ramble on I could just ramble on, and at some point it's going to diminish the space that perhaps is, hopefully held in some way for this conversation, for these topics, for this inquiry. There's obviously a lot more that can be said about this topic, and it's a topic that I'm pretty passionate about. The idea of facilitation, conscious facilitation. What does it mean to hold space for ourselves, for others, in a way that's generative, sustainable, and ultimately purposeful? Right? As we are here to evolve ourselves, we evolve each other, and we evolve our human evolution as a whole. And so, with that, I'm excited to have you be a part of this journey if you're watching this, and we will be sharing a lot more here. If you want to get connected, feel free to put say hello in the comments, and I'll look forward to chatting and speaking with you here soon. All right, y'all.